Welcome to the Rebel Health Coach Podcast with Tom Underwood. Armed with truth and knowledge, your journey to a healthy lifestyle can be obtained. Preventative wellness, quality nourishment, and daily fitness routines dramatically improve your outlook on life as a whole. And you'll find the support and info you need to accomplish a healthier lifestyle here. Together, we can empower each other along our journey to an amazing you.
In today's episode of the Rebel Health Coach, I am joined by Allan Misner, and we will be discussing his book, The Wellness Roadmap. Allan Misner is a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer and a Functional Aging Institute certified functional aging specialist. He is the creator of the thriving 40-plus fitness community, providing one-on-one and group coaching, nutritional guidance, and personal training for clients over the age of 40. He is also the host of one of my personal favorite podcasts, 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, for which he has interviewed hundreds of health and wellness experts with a wide range of specialties. Also, I would like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And thanks for listening this past year of 2018. I appreciate it very much, and I'm grateful for each of you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Allan, welcome to the Rebel Health Coach Podcast. I am excited to have you here today. I have to say before we get started talking about your latest book, I started this podcasting journey, and you're the very first podcast I downloaded or subscribed to on iTunes was a 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. And this is still in my rotation weekly to listen to. And I'm so grateful that you reached out to me to come on my show. And it's quite an honor, in my opinion, to have you today.
Well, the honor's mine, Tom. We've kind of connected on Facebook and interacted a little bit as you were getting started and as things were going. But I can just tell you, I love what you're doing with the podcast. And like I said, you were one of the first people that I was definitely going to reach out to get this message out. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, buddy. You're welcome. I'm glad we've connected, and I'm glad that if I ever get down to the Panhandle, I'll come visit you.
Well, you're going to have to do it soon because my wife and I are about to move to Panama.
Oh, okay. That's quite a move. Not just Panama City, Panama.
Yeah, actually Panama. Yeah.
Okay. All right. First of all, I want to say, when I read the intro to your book, I was blown away. And for the listeners, let's go into this story because include in there what you did prior to becoming a certified personal trainer and a certified functional aging specialist.
Well, I had gone through my life believing, okay, career first. I had lived my life that way. Found myself at about 39 years old with a really good position in a company, but it was really, really stressful. And I found myself in a relationship that was dysfunctional, to say the least. And again, just additional stress and issues. I decided I needed to take a vacation. And I went down to Puerto to Mexico, and I bought a timeshare there. And with the timeshare, I said, now I have a dedicated week, time every year I need to come down here. I'm pot invested. I'll come down here. So one of the first mornings I was there at this all-inclusive resort, I went out to play volleyball. And I love sand volleyball. We used to play it all the time, almost up to a semi-pro level where, we were winning tournaments and making money playing. But here I was, 39 years old, and I started playing. And within just a couple of matches, I had to sub out because I really believed I was going to have a heart attack. I was just exhausted. And I knew I was letting my team down. I was letting myself down. So I subbed out. And I just watched. So the next morning, I was down on the beach trying to meditate. And it just occurred to me that I had lost something extremely important to me with my inability to play volleyball, but it went much deeper than that. I had lost being the father I wanted to be. I had lost having the relationships that I needed to. And excuse the language, but I was a fat bastard. I had everything from a career perspective, but I just didn't have health. I didn't have fitness, and I didn't have happiness. And so I've come to understand that those are the three essential elements of wellness. And if you aren't happy, if you aren't healthy, and you aren't fit, you're not living the life that you're here to live.
Okay, great. That's great.
Now, the cool thing was I made the decision to change. The uncool part of it was I really hadn't made a commitment. So it took me a good 8 years after that before like the light bulb came on and I put it all together. And that's why I wrote the Wellness Roadmap, is so it doesn't take others 8 years to figure out what I figured out. The Wellness Roadmap will literally walk them to their definition of wellness, so their place of wellness. So it really is a way for you to design your trip, the journey you're going to take to get to whatever your vision of wellness is.
Okay. There's a lot of people out there that are feeling that same way, stuck. And, especially with people like I work with people in corporations, major corporations, and you were one of those at one point yourself. And is that you get to that point where, you're doing everything you can for the company you work for, but you're letting yourself go with stress and overweight and eating on the road and eating junk and not taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. And so it was, I would eat what I wanted. I would drink what I wanted. And sleep was not a priority for me because, there was work to do and the stress was chronic. It was every day, major things going on at work. And then when I went home, major things going on at home where I just never really had a reprieve. And I thought a vacation was the answer, but it was only really part of the answer. I really needed to address all the elements of my health, fitness, and happiness to get that all to work together.
Okay. So let's dive into the book a little bit. What is the Wellness Roadmap all about?
Okay. Whenever we're going to sit down and take a trip, we used to sit down. You remember the atlases we'd pull out before we had GPS? Okay. Yeah. I do use the GPS in this, but we used to pull out an atlas and we used to say, okay, we're going to drive from North Carolina to Price, Utah. And so we're sitting there drawing a little red felt pin, the highways and roads that we're going to take to see the whole trip through. So we've set a destination and we have a starting point. And now we're going to get on the road to do these different things. And so as a function of looking at your roadmap as you go, where are the best places for you to stop to eat? Where are the best places for you to get gas? Where are the best places for you to spend the night if you need to do a sleepover? Because that trip's going to take you weeks, potentially. Where are you going to stay? And what are you going to do on that trip? Where are the areas where, you're going to run into obstacles and have problems? We didn't back then have our navigation systems telling us there was going to be construction on Highway 70. We found that when we got there, and then we had to reroute ourselves to get around that construction. A bad rainstorm could happen and really slow us down. So we had to have strategies for how are we going to handle when we can only travel 30 miles per hour down the interstate, and we'd intended to cover a little bit more mileage today than we're actually getting covered. So the roadmap is literally just a way to walk you through the mental processes that we all have to go through to start. And then once you have it planned, it allows you to approach wellness and health and fitness and happiness all from one holistic look. And so we're saying, okay, if you don't have your fitness modalities taken care of, you need to, and here's why. If you don't have you come at it saying you want weight loss, well, we'll say, okay, well, what's the real problem here? Is it stress? Is it food? Is it sleep? So we kind of in this set, we walk you through all of those considerations for this journey. And then in the end, we all get to our destination, But that's typically not the end of the story. We didn't drive all that distance to just turn around and go back to the start. So at the end, I talk about how you can unload that cargo and celebrate what you've done, assess who you are today, because no one goes from being unwell to well without changing themselves at some fundamental level. So recognizing that change and what it means to your life is fundamentally important. And then, well, we went to Price, but that's not where we're going to stay. Now we're going to drive down to Arlington, Texas and see family there. So now we have a whole nother trip to plan, a whole nother route to draw out to go somewhere probably even better as far as we're talking about as wellness goes, and then just go. So it really is a way to walk you to your first venture into what wellness looks like for you, and then gives you the tools to carry that forward.
Okay, awesome. So we covered a little bit why you wrote this book, but let's dig in a little bit deeper, because you and I both know that, when you start this journey, and the why has to be big enough to take you through this journey. So why did you write this book?
Well, what I found was as I sat down with my clients, we kept having, every time I got a new client, we would have the same conversations. And it'd be, why are you here? Why do you want to hire me as a personal trainer? And I would invariably get the number one answer. If you were doing the Family Feud, okay, what's your first question? It's weight loss. Everybody starts with this idea that weight loss is going to make them healthier. And with good reason. But, the doctor's going to tell them, you should lose some weight. You're overweight. Your BMI is out of whack. You need to lose some weight. Well, I'm here to tell you that weight is a symptom of something else.
Right.
And so what I wanted to do was to help them identify the cause of the illness. You know this from your practice and what you do. If you don't address the cause,
right,
you're never going to get rid of the weight. You might get rid of it, and then it's going to come back on, and you get rid of it, and it'll come back on, and you just layer it on, layer after layer after layer, and it gets bigger and bigger, and it's the yo-yo. I went through that for almost 8 years. And so I wanted to help other folks understand we've got to get to the cause. And when we get to the cause and we deal with that, then the weight comes off. But the weight coming off is actually just a side effect of us getting healthy and fit.
Okay.
It's a side effect. It's not what we should be going after. We should be going after the cause. I have inflammation in my systems. That's why my joints hurt. It's not because I weigh, 200 and whatever pounds. It's because I have inflammation and my joints hurt. If I can get rid of the inflammation, I'm going to lose weight and my joints will stop hurting. So, I wrote this because I think so many people go in with good intent, but actually don't understand where they need to focus their attention.
Okay. So who should read this book and why should they read it?
I focus on individuals over the age of 40.
Okay.
And I do that for a very specific reason. We have to train differently than we did when we were in our 20s. In our 20s, our bodies were much more forgiving of injuries. We could do a lot more. We had a lot more capacity. I remember having the engine just being able to go all the time. I could eat what I wanted to eat, do what I wanted to do, and I could, in a sense, feel like I was exercising myself out of all the bad things that was going on in my life. And that worked up to a point. As I've gotten older, that's not happening anymore. I can't put the time and energy into exercise to lose the weight or to get myself healthy. I need better practices. I need to understand the capacities and limitations of not only my physical self, but my mental self. And so this is really for anyone who finds themselves over the age of 40, is either unfit, unhealthy, or unhappy, and wants to do something about it.
Right. Yeah, that's good, because basically when we hit 40 is when a lot of this stuff starts to happen.
Yes. And it gets harder and harder. And I get it, because, you don't have the energy. Your hormones are out of whack. They've been out of whack for a long, long time. When your testosterone was at a higher level, you could add muscle pretty quickly. You could shed some fat pretty quickly. But now maybe you're in a high stress job, so your cortisol levels are really, really high. You don't have the muscle mass and you don't have the testosterone. And so putting on muscle mass when you're over 40 is more difficult, but it's possible. That's the coolest thing about the human body. And I love it, is that no matter how old you are, if you could take a single breath and do one more thing, you can make yourself better.
Right.
The human body is amazing.
Exactly. And the human body is made to heal itself.
Yes.
So when you're, in my side of the fence, we call that menopause for the men. But
yeah.
And, and that's hard. It gets harder. You get fatigued, you get brain fatigue, you get brain fog. If you don't take care of it, like you said earlier, and you don't get to the why or fix it, it's going to keep going.
It does. In the book, I talk about sarcopenia, which I'm sure you're familiar with, osteopenia.
Right.
Both of those are situations where our body is degrading. Sarcopenia is the muscle going away at about 1% per year if we don't do anything about it. Osteopenia is the bone density going down about 1% per year if we don't do something about it. And so if you know that you need to be doing something about it, then let's figure out smart ways to get you under load, to get you doing resistance training of some point so that you can retain or gain muscle, you can retain or gain bone density. So that's a natural degradation that's going to happen to all of us on the path. If you'd assumed all cars are driving down the same road, some of them are driving a little faster than others towards aging, and some are driving a little slower towards aging. But you can actually change roads. If you start changing the lifestyle choices that you're making and making the better choices as you go, you can get on a different path. You don't have to go down the aging path the same way everyone else does.
Okay. So the Wellness Roadmap is neither a diet book or a workout book. What is it?
That's true. Diets, the word diet, if you actually looked it up, it talks about what you eat.
Right.
Okay. It doesn't say it's a change, but we've morphed the word to mean a temporary restriction. We're punishing ourselves for a temporary period of time for the lifestyle choices of the past. And that's okay. You can trick your body into losing some weight for a little while, but it really doesn't change who you are as a person. You haven't changed your lifestyle. So if you approach this from I'm going to go on a diet, that's not necessarily the answer to your overall problem because it's not addressing the cause.
Okay.
Same thing with the exercise. I do put some food things in there. I talk about nutrition because that's important. You do have to fix your nutrition. So I want to give you at least some guidelines of some things to think about as you do your own prescription for what you eat and how you eat and when you eat. And I also put some prescriptions in there for what kinds of exercises you should do for fitness. But I don't prescribe those. I basically say, here are the modalities for exercise. There's strength, there's body composition, there's endurance, there's balance, there's agility. All of these are important at some level or another. You could sit there and do all the weightlifting you want to do, or you could do all the running you want to do. Maybe you love to run, so you're going to go be a runner, and that's great. But when you're 65 years old and your chance of falling each year is about 1 in 4, and you break a hip because you didn't focus on bone density and you didn't focus on balance, and so you fall sideways in your kitchen and break your hip, there's a high probability that you're not going to recover from that, and that you're going to be dead within 1 year. It's the statistics are staggering. Like I said, 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 have a fall. 800,000 people go to the hospital for falls each year, and 29,000 die. And you look at the statistics of deaths. Falls are pretty high up in that number. And for people over the age of 65, it's one of the leading causes of death.
Okay.
So I didn't want to be prescriptive and say, this is the diet you must eat, or these are the exercises you must do. I wanted to say, figure out where you want to go If I say I'm driving to Price, Utah, or I'm driving to Philadelphia, that's great. You might not want to go to those places. You might want to go to New York City, or you may want to go to San Diego. And so your route, where you're going to do and what you're going to do, is going to be very different from what I do. So, I'm going to let you take and choose your path with this. And that's part of setting your GPS, which I think we'll get into in a minute.
Right.
But that's what this is all about, is I can't tell you what to eat because we're all unique. And I can't tell you how to work out exactly because we're all unique. Now, I lay down some basic guide work and I tell you the why you should be doing each of these things. But you have to make a decision of the priorities of those.
Okay. Let's dig into that right now then, the GPS part. When I looked at the book and read the book, it talked about the GPS part.
Yes.
And how is the wellness roadmap structured to help a reader or readers out there be successful?
Okay. There are three parts to the book. And so the first part is the GPS, which is the most important part. If you don't set your GPS, then you're going to meander. And most of us, that's what we've done in the past, is we just meandered. We probably got closer to where we wanted to be, but we really got there. So with the GPS, what we're doing is we're starting out with the grounding. And that's where we're looking at the why and we're looking at the vision. So if I asked you, what does fitness look like to you? You may say, well, I see a CrossFit athlete, and to me, that's what fitness is. And I'll say, well, I see a grandmother on the floor playing with her grandchild. That's fitness.
Okay.
The CrossFit athlete wants to do CrossFit. That's his fitness. The gentleman that wants to play golf or wants to ski until he's 90, those are all fitness. Now, they all look a little different, but they're the vision of fitness, that individual. So if we have that vision of where we want to go and we have our why, we now have a commitment. I will do the things I need to do for this reason and to be this way.
Okay.
And so just quickly, I'll tell you, my why was my daughter. My vision was to be able to participate with her in the active things she liked to do. She was getting into CrossFit. She was getting into mud runs. And I'm like, I don't want to just go and watch my daughter do a workout. I don't want to just go and watch her do a mud run. I want to be there doing it with her. Okay. That's the father I wanted to be. Now, my daughter was 20 and, I was 45. So for me to keep up with a 20-year-old, I set a pretty high bar for myself.
Yeah.
But I did it. We finished a Tough Mudder together and I didn't slow her down a bit. And we had a great time. So that's the grounding, is the understanding where you want to go. And then the personalization, the P, is where you actually start thinking about where you are now.
Okay.
So an example would be someone for me to go to San Diego, I live in Pensacola Beach, I would start driving west, straight down I-10. Okay. You're further north. So you got to meander across a little bit and change some lanes, probably somewhere around, probably around Dallas or something is probably when you'll cut down and get towards 10 or something like that. So your route's going to be slightly different than mine. But so when you sit down and take the time to understand where you are today, what are the injuries that you've had? What are the things that have held you back in the past? And so you start saying, okay, now I can set milestones. I can set SMART goals.
Right.
Okay. I couldn't go from, just where I was on the couch to running a Tough Mudder. There were some interim steps there, some things I had to set as these little mile markers to tell me that I was on the right track. So that's the personalization. And then looking at your health markers. Okay. If you have, high cholesterol, or you have high blood pressure, or, your body measurements are such that, maybe your circumference of your stomach is over 40 inches, all of those are things that are baseline measurements that you can take to see the progress. So the weight is a side effect of doing the right things, eating the right things. These other biomarkers, markers for lack of a better word, will tell you that you're on the right path. If I see my stomach circumference going down, even though I might not be losing weight, that's a win.
Okay.
If I'm able to, say tomorrow I'm able to deadlift, 5% more weight than I was able to a month ago, that's a win. All the things that I'm looking for my vision, what are those things that I can track to know that I'm winning? And the more of those I have, not so many, but enough to where one of them might not be moving. The scale might not be moving, but these other markers are.
Okay.
So it always gives me something to know that I'm moving forward.
Okay.
Okay. That's that personalization. Make it personal to you, where you're starting from to get where you want to go. And then the last one is self-awareness. And that's where we go through both the physical and the mental limitations and capacities that we have. When I first started my journey, I went out there and I bought the Insanity Work Set. It's a DVD tapes back then. I think they do it online now with Shaun T. And it's, I thought, okay, no weights, no equipment. That's fine. I'm traveling 90%. This will be perfect. And I sit down and just do the fitness test. And the next morning I couldn't get out of bed. Okay. I did not set my mind to understand what my physical limitations were. And I pushed myself too hard. And that's easy to do. I think we see that all the time. If we start a new workout regimen and we push ourselves a little too hard, we pay the consequences. And sometimes that will derail us. So understanding what those are is very, very important. Then the other side of it is the mental game. And this is the harder one. So what's going to happen when I go into the office on Friday and they brought donuts again to the staff meeting?
Good one.
Okay, what's my reaction to that? And since I now know that's a limitation, what can I do about it? Maybe I say to them, okay, just don't walk by the break room on your way to the meeting.
Right.
Bring some nuts or a healthy snack, however you define that, to the meeting. So you're eating, they're eating, but you're feeding your body what it needs. So understanding what your limitations are, the things that are going to trip you up. One of the big ones for me was, and I don't know if this was a mental block or what, but if I didn't pack my gym bag the night before and leave it by the door that I was going to walk out in the morning to the point where I would trip over it,
right,
invariably I would either forget the bag, or if I did pack the bag in my groggy state in the morning, for one reason, I would forget a shoe, I'd forget my socks, I'd forget my, something.
Right.
And then I'd get to, where I say, okay, I'm going to go do my workout at lunchtime. And I would say, oh crap, I didn't bring shorts, or crap, I forgot my shoe. Or my socks. I'm like, I'm not going to wear gym socks. And, so I was giving myself built-in excuses. And so kind of having that self-awareness. So now that's the GPS part. And that's really where you set yourself in motion, because now you know where you're starting from, where you're going. You've got all those little measures to tell you that you're moving forward, and you're aware of the types of things that are going to cause you problems. So you can have strategies in place to start working with those. So that's the first one. Then the second part of the book, I call it streets.
Okay.
And I had to come up with an acronym. So bear with me. These are not in the order that I would have put them in the book if I could. But strategies is the first one. Yes.
Right.
The first S is strategies. The T is training. The first E is energy. The second E is education.
Okay.
The T is time. And the last S is stress.
Okay.
Okay. I would not exactly put those in the same order if I were to write the book again. If I were to not use the streets, but I'll go through them really quickly. So the first thing is, since we have this self-awareness and we know where we're going, we need to start setting strategies. Strategies are the things that help keep us on track. So I told you my strategy was to basically have my gym bag sitting by the door so I would almost trip over it in the morning. That's a strategy to make sure that I have my gym bag with me at work. Now, a tactic would be what I'm going to do when I get to the gym. So what workout am I going to do? What body parts? Those are tactics. Tactics are important, but you have to have the strategies to make sure you're in place to actually execute the tactics. Okay. Then the T is for training. And that's where I go through all the different modalities of training that someone over the age of 40 should be considering.
Okay.
And why they're each important. And then based on what your vision looks like, how much you want to allocate your time to each of those training modalities. For me, strength has always been an important modality.
Right.
Now, as I'm getting a little older, I'm realizing I need to start working on my balance and mobility. And so I make sure I'm factoring in and doing some mobility and balance work as I get older.
Okay.
And that's just an allocation of my time to the things that matter most. The first E is energy. And that's where we talk about nutrition and hydration. If you're not giving your body the fuel that it needs, it's not going to perform. So if you have a diesel BMW and you try to put regular gasoline in there, it is not going to function the way you want it to. So you need to make sure you're getting good fuel and you're staying hydrated. Then the next E is education. And I think this is a big one. Podcasts like this one, you want to make sure you're teaching yourself why things are the way they are. That you're not just sitting there saying, well, my doctor said eat this way, therefore I am. Now, your doctor might be absolutely right, and it might work great for you. But that's a trial and error. That's an N equals 1 experiment. You need to try those to learn.
Right.
And so in the book, I actually share a story about me trying statins as my experiment. And it didn't go all that well for me. But, some people do need to be on statins. Others, again, they have to experiment and figure out what's there for them. So education and experimentation, okay? Then the T is time. And this is where I probably would have put this closer up to the front of the book, because I think this is where people really trip themselves up, is they don't have the patience. They don't have the persistence.
Right.
And they don't really do progression very well. And all three of those are necessary elements for you to keep moving forward. I think anyone will know that in a car, the fun part of driving a car is when you can accelerate.
Right.
That's what feels good in a car. When you put it in cruise control at 65 miles per hour going down the highway, now it's just, well, let's turn on the radio or a podcast because this is boring.
Right.
But the acceleration part of it, that's what's fun. And that's what, if you're doing patience, persistence, and progression, you're going to find the fun in the things that you're doing, because you're going to see progress.
Right.
And then every once in a while, we're going to run into plateaus. And that's when it's really important for us to double down on those P's, the patience, persistence, and progression. Then the last S is stress. And I skipped rest. I'm sorry. R was rest.
Right.
Okay. I skipped rest.
That's
and
okay.
Then rest. Okay. and so I talk about sleep, and then I talk about stress. And I'm honest in the book to a fault. A lot of people say, hey, you don't have to be so mean to yourself. It's not about being mean. It's just being real, and that's where we got to go with this. But stress management was really kind of the last linchpin for me. It wasn't quite there. So when I got laid off last year, I basically said to myself, why go back?
Right.
What's the compelling why for me to go back to work when I have this compelling why to not go, to be healthy, and happy and fit. Right. And so I didn't. I doubled down on the podcast, and I started writing this book. And that's where I want to spend my time. The joy I get out of helping others and being a part of their transformation is far surpasses anything I could ever get from a job.
Right.
So I'm not going back. And in fact, we're moving to Panama in February, and that's all part of this de-stressing. I'm going to go to a very quiet, slow island, and I'm going to enjoy doing what I love doing, and not worrying about much else.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And now for some general housekeeping. First things first, if you enjoyed this episode, please take a minute, go into your app and rate and review this show. Then share it with your friends. This would mean the world to me. Next up, to join my mailing list for newsletters and other emails, text RHCP, Rebel Health Coach Podcast, RHCP to 22828. Again, text RHCP to 22828. I promise not to send you endless emails. Believe me, who has the time for that? Now, To grab a free 20-minute consultation with me, go to my website, and on the homepage, at the bottom is a red button that says Book Now. Click it and schedule your consultation with me. I will have you fill out an intake form so that during our consultation, we can discuss what I can do for you and also see if we are a good fit to work together. You can find the link in the show notes also. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the episode.
And so the third part of the book is what I call cargo. And this is when you've gotten to your destination. So you've gone through all this trials and tribulations. You've pushed yourself. You've now accomplished what you had as a vision of wellness. So you're fitter anyway. You're healthier, and you're more happy. And you can have this success. You can have this celebration, but don't celebrate in a way that's not going to be aligned with who you are now. This is not a time to go out and start having cake and drinking beers and saying, "Yoo-hoo, I'm healthy now."
Right.
You find a way to celebrate that actually aligns with now who you are. And I'll get into that next step. So that's the C, is celebrate, because you deserve to celebrate. The A is awareness that you are now a different person. You didn't get this way by being the same person you were. And so people are going to treat you differently. Many are going to ask you how you did what you did, and you're going to feel different. So by all means, be different. Live a different lifestyle now. Be an example. Others are going to come to you. You can't tell them exactly how to do what they're going to do. They're going to have to follow and build their own roadmap. You can hand them the book,
right, and
say, here's the roadmap, follow it for yourself. It'll take you where you want to go. Then the R is resetting your GPS. If you go to a place and you just sit there, most people regress. They don't, if they don't have something driving them somewhere else or something higher, then they tend to regress. Maintenance is boring. Like I said, it's not acceleration anymore. So find something cool to do, something that you want to make a part of your lifestyle and part of your training, a part of your eating, all of that for the next set. And so make this a constant work of art where you're trying to perfect, in a sense, your wellness. You'll never make it to perfection, but you can keep working towards higher and higher goals. Higher and higher visions. So reset that GPS. Now it's going to be easier the second time and even easier the third time because you have that self-awareness. You've already built a lot of really good habits. So it gets easier and easier to reach those higher goals as you kind of keep pushing through. And then the GO is just go. You're the driver in your wellness journey. So you take the wheel, you put your foot on the gas and go wherever your health will take you.
Right. That's awesome. Bravo for coming up with this, man. I love it. I love it because it's so true. I mean, you've lived it. I've lived it. I mean, we always have to reset our GPS when we reach different stages.
Yes. And at different stages in our lives.
Right.
So I'll give you a perfect idea. Like I say, right now, my vision of goal was to do a Tough Mudder with my daughter. My next one, I did a Spartan. I was going to do a Spartan with my brother. And then I said, okay, longer, harder, it isn't necessarily the right thing for me. What are other things I can focus on? And like I said, stress, so not going back to the job, deciding that Panama would be a much lower stress location for me. That's just another setting on the GPS for me to do, all the way to the point where one of my goals is to be able to wipe my own butt when I'm 105. Okay. And it's funny, but
right.
if you don't have the leg strength to do a body weight squat, what are you going to do when you're sitting on a toilet?
Right. You can't get up.
Someone else is going to have to help you.
Right.
And I want to hold on to my independence for as long as I possibly can.
Exactly.
So your visions are different. Your goals are different. But you just keep pushing towards being the individual you want to be, and that's really what that's all about.
That's good. That's really good. All right. Now that we're at that part, well, now what? what's the number one tip for maintaining healthy habits once you've reached this goal?
Well, like I said in the cargo part, and that's why I included it in the book. So many people say, okay, yeah, hey, you're there. And it's end of book, the end. And then and I'm like, well, no, we still have lives. We still have things going on. We're going to have setbacks. We're going to have things that are going to happen around us that, we now have to navigate differently. But just recognizing that if you've surrounded yourself with the right people and you're listening to the right people, you're in a good place. And so just keep being in that good place.
Yeah.
It's so easy to let the saboteurs trip us up.
Yeah.
And it's if you surround yourself with good people, and be that training partners and just other health conscious people and coaches, having those kind of people in your life they're just going to keep pushing and driving you to stay in that well place, happy, healthy, and fit.
Right. All right. Now, this is a big one for me. And we talked a little bit about this before we even started recording, but why? Why is having a why important in maintaining and attaining, not maintaining, but attaining these goals?
Because it's hard. It's damn hard. It just is. And if you kind of go at it, because as I said in the book, I explained how in Mexico that morning I made a decision, but I didn't really commit to it until 8 years later. And it wasn't until I had that aha moment of, I didn't have anything behind me as a foundation. I didn't have anything to push against to keep me up. So there was no way for me to move. I had no friction, no anything to just really give me a drive to do anything for a long period of time. I would go on a diet and then I would go off the diet. I would make a resolution and like 98% of 92% of the resolutions out there, I would fail.
Right.
And then I'd say, okay, well, I've made this decision. And well, then later on I decide I wanted to eat pizza. They're both decisions.
Right.
And then there's this wonderful word we use all the time, and it's called willpower. It's a finite resource. And the more we use it, the more we rely on it, the more often it's going to fail us. So, all those words, diet, resolution, decision, willpower, they are weak words. We're almost rewarded for having them just to say we had one. I had a resolution. Well, how'd it go? Well, 3 weeks in, I failed. That's okay. Everybody else did too. We're in a club together. I mean, we all get along now, right?
We got the same T-shirt.
But when you make a commitment, that's different.
Right.
When you get married and you say, I do, you don't go off into happily ever after. That magic world doesn't exist. Now you have the real work starts.
Right.
Now you actually have someone in your life that is depending on you, something you have to do. And then you have children and you commit to the welfare of those children. That's deep. That's emotional. And that's where you get your traction.
Right.
That's what makes things happen. And then you're going down the road and, your rotator cuff tore. Okay. What are you going to do? Are you going to stop everything? Or are you going to use that commitment as a foundation to say, okay, a change of route. I've got to do something slightly different and then get back on the road. So just like if you had a blowout in your tire of your car, you're going to call AAA, you're going to get the tire repaired and replaced, and then you're going to get back on the road. In the meantime, what are you going to be doing to maintain your fitness, health, and your happiness? So that's what this is all about, is say, the world's going to happen and it's going to push against you and it's going to be really, really hard, but you can do it if you have a compelling why.
Right. And without that why, you're going to end up to being 8%.
Yeah. You're going to do okay. Potentially. I mean, there were times I, ebbed up and I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then there were times when I just fell back down.
Yeah.
And it really was that. It's just try, fall, fall. And, until I made a commitment, I wasn't able to change my lifestyle.
Right. And that's important because, like you said, 92% fail of New Year's resolutions, and we're actually going into that time right now.
Yeah.
by the time this goes out,
So don't make a resolution.
Right.
Make a commitment.
Make a commitment.
Yes.
And make your why big enough to keep adjusting your GPS to get to your destination.
Yes, absolutely.
That's important. And that's where a lot of people miss the boat.
And that's why I tell everyone in the book, it's like the GPS is not glamorous. It's not fun. It's a lot of self-reflection. And you're not at the gym yet. It's like, and you're not changing your food yet. You're sitting down planning to do these things. And I know a lot of people want to get to the tactics that they're going to find in the streets part of the book, which is the meat of it. But to just go straight to the streets, you're missing the most critical component of wellness. And that is knowing what it is and having a compelling why so you'll get there.
Right. And this kind of leads me right to the next part. Because a lot of people, what my diet plan or what I eat might not work for Allan. And what Allan eats might not work for me. And some of the questions I get asked a lot are, well, what diet? I see this, especially right now with the ketogenic diet booming. I'm on the ketogenic diet. So why isn't there a one-size-fits-all diet plan that works for everyone?
Well, we all have our unique biochemistry. We all have our unique heredity. We all have our unique tastes and desires. We all have our own limitations. I talk about a guy I interviewed for the podcast. His name is Todd. And when Todd ended up in the hospital for a skin infection, his doctor weighed him and he weighed close to 600 pounds.
Wow.
And he was given the stark reality at that time in the hospital that he probably wasn't going to live to see his daughters grow up if he didn't change something. Now, the problem was at 600 pounds and all of the medical issues that Todd had, he wasn't able to work out. So everything he did had to be based on his nutrition at first, until he could heal himself. Whereas when I went at this, I was fully capable of running. I was fully capable of lifting weights. I was fully capable. So my path to wellness was extremely different than Todd's, but we both found ourselves moving down our own roads. So we're all starting at different places.
Right.
And we're all potentially going to different places. But even if we're all going to the same place, let's say you and I worked in the same office. We don't live in the same neighborhood, so we're going to drive different paths, different routes to get to what might be the same place.
Right.
You and I might say, hey, let's run a 12K next March. And we're like, okay, cool, we'll run this 12K. Well, my training is going to probably look very different than your training. My nutrition may look very different than your nutrition, and that's fine. We have to decide what's going to work for us. If it doesn't fit who you are, and as a guy, his name's Dr. Friedman, his book's Food Sanity. Great book, by the way. He has a method in there he calls the DIG method, and he was so kind to let me actually include this in my book. I love it that much that I asked him if I could borrow.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so the DIG method is this. One is discovery. So doing some research, doing some education, understanding what the science is behind what you're about to do. So if you're thinking about the keto diet as a way of eating, then do some research on it. Understand what it is, understand what the pros are and the cons. Don't just focus on one side of this story. Don't have information bias. Go in with this knowing, okay, I'm going to learn what I can about this way of eating. Number two is talk through the process of, does this make sense to you? So the I is, I'm drawing a blank, but it's basically your intuition. Yeah. So does it make sense? So if someone says, okay, he was watching some fitness guru and the guru said, go on a fast, a dry fast. And what his thought was, don't drink any water for 24 hours. And I'm like, okay, does he have any science that up at all? Because you'll lose weight because you're going to dehydrate. But I said, I cannot find anything redeeming about that health-wise or otherwise. I'm like, just don't.
Right.
Because my intuition was like, no.
Right,
No.
exactly.
Well, I said my piece with the guy. The guy still, I think, went out and did it. reported back that he lost some weight. As soon as he started drinking water again, the weight came right back on. Crazy, huh?
Right, exactly. It's like,
what does your intuition say? So if we look at the keto diet, what do you think? What did your ancestors eat? What kind of foods would they have gone for? What would have been available? Does eating this way seem to make sense to you based on what you've learned doing your research? And if that works, then you go to the last one, which is God. So D-I-G, God. But it doesn't have to be from a religious perspective. It's just you are placed in the universe. And so there are people for legitimate ethical reasons do not like the way our food is prepared, or the way our animals are treated in our food industry. I don't either. So I try to avoid, that practice as much as I can. Because it's hard to avoid it 100% of the time. But when I'm given an option, it's pastured animals, it's farm raised animals, it's locally done animals. I actually can talk to the farmer at the farmer's market, or I go into the co-op and they have labeled the local farms that this food has come from. And I know the practices at that farm. So I know these are well cared for animals, or healthy animals, and they didn't suffer the way some of our farmed animals are. So going through that dig method kind of can tell you whether something is going to make sense for you or not. I recently interviewed someone who is a vegan keto. So not easy, but she does it. She explains it in her book, How to Do It. Will Cole is talking about ketotarian, where it's predominantly plant-based keto. So what might work for me, and there's people doing carnivore, So keto is not just one thing. If you do the research and say, I could do keto as long as it's the predominantly plant-based version of that, I understand it and I can do that. If I want to be a vegan and be keto, okay, I can do the research. It fits with who you are. So if you've gone through that thought process, you'll find that path.
Right. And one of the things I'm going to say right here, though, is if you're going to do keto, when you do the research, pick reliable sources to do the research. Because Dr. Google will send you down a lot of roads.
Doctor will too. If there's a doctor, there's doctors that have been on the plant-based piece of this for a long, long time, and they'll find every study they can that will tell you why keto will kill you, and then everyone who is a proponent of keto will find every study to tell you why eating carbs is bad. So don't just listen to one side of this story. Listen to all of them. And make the decisions that seem to make the most sense. And you do your experiment, your N = 1 experiment. You eat like this for 30 days, 28 days, and you feel good, and it's working for you. And your other biomarkers, not just weight, but your other biomarkers are moving in the right direction. Then by all means, make that a permanent change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's some really good resources for Jim. You've interviewed Jimmy Moore as well, and he's an outstanding person, and to me, in my opinion, he's one of the best research sources. Him and Will Cole, and
I will add the two keto dudes.
Those two.
Carl and Rich. They do a keto fest up in Connecticut every year in July. I'm the personal trainer for Keto Fest.
Okay.
So I go up there and do group trainings for them. At least I have the first 2 years, and I believe they're going to have me back next year. And great resources. Richard is all about the science. In fact, he's going back to school to get into the medical field rather than just all his own personal research that he's done. So, there's a lot of good sources out there, but just realize that what will work for you might not work for me. I know I can't really eat a lot of fruit without putting on weight because my body just doesn't process it, which makes sense because my ancestors were all from Northern Eastern European. Okay. And so during this time of year, we're recording this in December, there would be very little vegetables. There would be no fruit for at least the next 4 or 5 months. So they're going to have to eat fish. And then they're going to go after critters because they're easy. They're easier to catch and not going to hurt you. But fish would probably be the easiest thing to get and not get hurt. Every once in a while, every once in a while they would go after an elk or a bear, but that's a much more dangerous prey.
Right.
So we're not going to go after that unless we have a plan and we can do it safely.
Right.
So some red meat.
Right.
And so that's how I based mine. I went through the process there saying what seems to make sense. I ate that way for a while and it works. And I've tried other things and they didn't work. So I can't poo-poo one way or the other. I'm just saying,
right.
set your path and try it.
Right. And I can't eat bananas because I'll gain weight quickly.
Yeah, same way. I can't especially tropical fruit. Yeah, anything like mangoes, papayas, bananas, pineapples. I can tolerate some, but I think that's just the fiber content of those that they blunt that a little bit. But even then, I don't eat a lot. I'll have a little bit of pineapple. Like when we went to Hawaii, I'm like, I'm not going to Hawaii and not eating.
Exactly. Exactly.
But that was a planned detour. That was a planned detour. I said, I'm going to Hawaii. I'm going to, go ahead and have some pineapple, but I'm not going to go nuts with this. And then, I'll walk a lot more. So hopefully we'll balance out.
That's like going to Germany and not having a beer.
Yeah. I mean, there's just times when you need to take those detours. And that's why happiness is a part of my definition of wellness. I mean, if you're just driven and you're just, you're not liking your food, you're not liking your exercise, you're killing yourself, you might look great. You might be completely ripped and you might, have perfect blood markers and a resting heart rate of 54 and everything in your life might just seem perfect. But if you're not happy.
Right. What difference does it make?
Great. Yeah. Happy, miserable, I guess. Right. I don't know. But, just realize that you need to have planned detours. You're going to have planned detours. Enjoy those and then get right back on the road. Right.
All right. And now we're talking about the setbacks. Let's just go right there before we wrap this up. But I faced setbacks. I had on my journey, I had afibrillation. I had to have a surgery done to have fibrillations, arterial fibrillation completely reversed. And I had to have some downtime. So it was a setback for me during that time of my weight loss journey. I mean, weight loss, setbacks are going to happen. Let's just say that.
Yes.
How do we recover from them?
Well, I'll use a personal example if that helps you. Okay. I was training for a Spartan Super, which was a 12-mile mud run with obstacles. If you miss the obstacle, the Spartan race, you're actually required to do 30 burpees. Okay. And there were I think 24, 25 obstacles. Let's just say I may have made 60% of them. So you can kind of start counting in your head how many burpees this guy was going to be doing. This guy did. But okay, that said, I knew I wanted to be stronger and I was working my endurance and I was cutting body fat and I was getting ready for this race. And then I tore my rotator cuff. And this was not a minor tear. I knew when I did it, this was a major tear because I had no arm strength at all in a couple different planes. So I knew it was complete tear when I did it. I felt it and I heard it and I knew it. So here I was, 2 months out from a Spartan, and I now had this setback. What was I going to do to be able to continue to do what I wanted to do, which was that Spartan? Because I'd signed up with my brother. I thought my brother was going to be there, and we were going to do this. So I said, okay. And also my wife and I were going to go parachuting, jump out of an airplane, skydiving on that same trip. So I had this trip planned and I'm like, I'm not going to the trip. I'm not doing the Spartan and I'm not jumping out of that airplane. So I trained around it. I said, okay, well, what are the other strength areas I can do that wouldn't impact this? So obviously I couldn't do any overhead pressing and my push-up was extremely limited. But I could still work my legs. I could still work my core. I could still really build endurance, which is what I did most of my focus on. Because and then I just knew, okay, this is going to hurt when I do it. And so it was just setting my mind and saying, okay, I have to change paths. I have to get on the frontage road and drive slower in some ways. Okay. And I can just focus on other things that matter. So if you were driving down the road and you had engine trouble, and they're going to tow your car into town, get on the internet and find out if there's some kind of local attraction, a museum or something like that, where you can spend your 3 hours, doing something else enjoyable or productive. You just find that thing. So I would say for anyone over 40, if you find yourself injured, think about balance training. Think about mobility. Depending on the type of injury, mine was an upper body, shoulder injury. Right. I could still run.
Right.
So I could still work endurance.
Right.
And I didn't have to completely stop lifting weights. In fact, the fact that I continued to lift weights and keep my arms moving through the full range of motion. When I went for recovery in my PT, the physical therapist was amazed. He's like, I've never seen anyone come in with the range of motion you have with the injury you had. And he said, and he worked with Division I football players. Okay. So here I am coming in, 51 years old, and I have almost full range of motion in most directions of my shoulder. And then I lost some of that because they made me keep my arm in a brace for 3 weeks. But I worked through it. I worked really hard on my physical therapy. So I was back to, I'd say 80% within 2 months.
Okay.
Because I had a plan. I focused. And so that's all I would say is just find the things you can do that are going to bring you closer to your vision. It might not be what you were doing, but just keep moving forward with anything.
Right. Very good. Very, very good. I love this. I can't wait to get my copy of this book, actually. Okay. How can the readers connect with you, Allan? Other than, go ahead. I'm going to let you finish.
Yeah. Well, I've set up a landing page for them. If they'll go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com /rebel.
Okay.
There's a page setting there. And basically on this page, I'm going to tell you about the book and give you a link to order it on Amazon. I'm going to tell you about the podcast and give you a link to find the podcast. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my group personal training. And when you go there, if you check out the personal training, you go to the sign up page, you decide you want to join my group training, I'm going to give your listeners a first month for just $1. So they can use coupon code REBEL at checkout for the group training.
Okay.
They'll get the first month for $1 to try it out. And so the details are on that page, 40plusfitnesspodcast.com /rebel. And I've got the basic information there. Also, I've got a little link if they want to have like a short little 15-minute consult with me to talk about whether online group training works for them or not.
Okay.
They're welcome to do that. I'll talk them through it, let them know how it all works. And, we'll hopefully some folks will realize that, they're ready to make this move and they're ready to make that commitment. And I'd love to help be a part of that journey for them going forward.
Okay. /rebel.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's easy for them.
Good.
While we're on that subject, though, do you do fitness, online fitness stuff?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have group and I have one-on-one.
Okay.
The one-on-one is by application because I only work with the people that I know are already truly committed.
Okay.
And looking to do something special. This is a huge investment of my time. And I don't want to waste their time and I don't want to waste my time. I want to make sure. So I'm very selective with who I take on as a one-on-one. My group clients, I'm a little bit more open with them to work with them. And once they kind of buy into the program, they all typically do pretty well. I do a weekly conference call and everyone's on there. I provide like a lesson. It's similar to a podcast, but the difference is when I finish the lesson, it's 10, 15 minutes. I open it up to questions. So we can personalize what I just talked about. And then I open it up to just total questions. So if there's a question someone has related to health, fitness, happiness, whatever, I'm there to answer that question. They also have access to me via email and via the online chat. So if there's something they need, they can reach out to me. I have resources like exercise programs, all of that on a client site that they can access. That runs $75 per month. But like I said, I'm willing to let people try it for $1 because I know it works.
Right.
I've had some clients that have gotten some great results. You can see some of those testimonials on the website. But, in general sense, I just want to help as many people as I can.
Okay.
So come kick the tires for $1 and see if this doesn't work for
That's
me.
awesome. The book, I'm going to post where the book's available. I know it's available on Amazon because I ordered mine.
Yeah, it's going to be available. It should be available everywhere. You can probably go to your local Barnes and Noble and ask them to order it. It's going to have, an ISBN number, so it should be locatable everywhere. It's ebook right now. I'm running a special on. I'll be running that through about the first week of the book going live.
Okay.
That's just to make sure it gets into the hands of as many people as can get it. And there's no excuse. I mean, Amazon won't let me lower the price less than 99 cents. Unless I go to publish it somewhere else as an ebook and then list it as $0, they'll match.
Don't do that.
I'm like, I'm just okay. Here's 99 cents. Then there's a paperback, there's a hardback, and I did record an audiobook that should be out there soon. It's not showing up yet, but it takes them a little while to approve it. But it should be out there soon. If it's not there now, the audiobook is coming.
So I'm going to say, with Christmas coming out there, this is a good little book to grab and give to your favorite people. Yes,
thank you.
No problem, man. I like easy books, so I'll probably buy some and give them to my clients. Because this is a good book, especially when you're. I love the analogies all the way through the book with the GPS and the cargo and street. That's great.
I went kind of nuts on that. It's funny because when I was working professionally and I'd have talks with my groups, I would pull these things out and use them. And the superpower was what one person told me, that I had just the superpower to keep those things coming out in a way that keeps the story fresh. But the other side of this book is I share a lot of my personal journey here. And, I'm completely open and honest in there. And I'm as flawed a protagonist as you're ever going to find. I learned the hard way in many times, and I want you to learn the easy way by seeing me in those moments and understanding that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is an end to the tunnel, and you just have to have a why and have to keep moving forward.
Yeah. That's a biggie. The why is the big one.
Yes.
I don't have that, and stress. I'm going to say stress because that's a biggie.
It is. I unfortunately, that would be my last S. I would have probably prioritized that a little bit earlier, and I actually do that in the book. I list kind of the 4 pillars, being food, sleep, stress, and exercise.
Right.
And the exercise is only 10% of the puzzle. Food,
sleep, stress, and food.
Yeah, sleep and stress. I gave 20%, and exercise I give a 10%. And that's coming from a personal trainer. So when I'm telling you, I can't get you there. Many cases, if I was working with a client directly one-on-one, I've got you for maybe, a month, a week, 3 weeks. If we're working in person, I may have you 3 hours a week.
Right.
Okay. There's 174 or 75 hours beyond that.
Right.
The things you do during those other 100 some odd hours are going to be just as important as what you do during those 3. So, yes, stress for me was the hardest one. And I admit that I'm still a work in progress with all of it, but stress is still the one that and we could go into a whole nother episode. Stress, but
absolutely. Stress is, I always say that stress is probably the number one driver of disease.
It is a big component because it tends to drive poor behaviors as well. Right. All I would say is, the book is going to walk you through a process of considering what matters most to you. I do put tactics and tools out there. So when we get into stress, I talk about eliminate the stress.
Yep.
Separate yourself from the stress.
Exactly.
Breathe, meditate, understand the stress in a way that you embrace it and understand doing something with it. I got the opportunity to eliminate some stressors in my life. It was hard. Breaking up with that toxic girlfriend was hard. Deciding I wasn't going to go back to that job was hard, or wasn't going to go back to a job. Those were hard decisions, but because I had the why backing me up and I had the vision, I was like, well, okay, the path is clear. It's not back that direction I came from.
Right.
It's forward.
And I'm not going to lie. As much as I preach it, it still happens.
You know, the way I understand it, most people say there's only been one perfect person on this earth,
right? And that's the man
and
above.
It wasn't me,
right? Yeah.
You know, and when you get the book, you'll see as it's a tale of foibles that I think will resonate with a lot of people because, you know, we all find ourselves unhappy, unfit, and unhealthy at points in our life, and then the question is get away from that. And I made every single mistake as I went through. I said, okay, well that was a mistake. Well, that was a mistake, and I didn't understand that well. You know, I tried pescatarian as an example, and I gained weight. And you know, I was eating all the time. I had to eat all the time. I couldn't stay full.
Right.
And so I just, but looking back on it now, you know, it's that 2020, as we look back at our past failures, I probably didn't do pescatarian right for myself.
Okay.
I did it the way a lot of people would. I had plenty of fruits. You know, how many servings of fruit I'd have a day? It was 5 or 6 servings of fruit. I was eating vegetables, and I would have some fish. What I found was I needed nuts and fruit to fill me up most of the day. So I was eating a ton of nuts and fruits. I had nuts and fruit everywhere, including dried fruits, you know, because they carry well. Dried fruit and nuts in my truck. I had dried fruit and nuts in my office. And I was eating stuff like all the time. Like if I wasn't asleep, brushing my teeth, or shower, I was eating.
Wow.
And I just felt compelled to eat because I was always hungry. Whereas, you know, if I get onto a good low fat approach, for me it works, and I'm not trapped by food, and I can intermittent fast without even worrying about it. So, you know, there's things I've learned myself that I would say work for other people. But that said, you know, there is a path for you, and you can find.
One question I ask of all my interviews or people I've interviewed is, if Allan had an hour to kill or half an hour to kill, what album or artist would you put on to chill out with?
The odd thing is I have such an eclectic taste in music that I literally listen to everything from rap to classical.
Okay.
And so it's going to be very mood based. And so I just say on the mood right now, it would probably be something from the 80s. It would probably be something around kind of a Depeche Mode or, you know, or something like that. That would just kind of be mellow and, you know, easy. Maybe not as dark as Depeche Mode. I might pick someone who's a little bit lighter than them, but probably someone from that era. And out of that whole second British invasion, as we used to like to call it.
Yeah, right.
So probably Frankie Goes to Hollywood or Depeche Mode, something like that.
Those are some good tunes, man, back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Depeche Mode, The Cure, The Smiths. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Oh, Allan, thank you so much, man. I'm so blessed to have you on here today.
No, really, it's my honor. Thank you, Tom, for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining in today with the Rebel Health Coach, Tom Underwood. And be sure to subscribe to the show so you can catch all the episodes. With desire and commitment, you can implement a lifestyle of wellness and fitness. For the support, encouragement, and tools you need to be successful, visit tomunderwood.net.